Hello everyone. Sorry, I've been out for a very long time, and I know I promised to upload daily for 60 days and I stopped around 10 days into it. There's a lot of personal things that have happened during that period, so I apologize for that. I just wanted to get that out the door, and so I wanted to talk more about what has been happening in my life in the past 2-3 weeks or so. So starting off, the first thing that I did was I hired a video editor and / virtual assistant to help me out with all the content creation and all of the work that I've planned out for this channel. For that was very early on, I realized that return on investment for me in terms of video editing, thumbnail creation, and things like that wasn't very high. I had to learn a lot of new tools like Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere, Canva, Photoshop, just to do some of that work that I wasn't used to in the past. The first learning process, the curve, was really interesting because I felt like I was learning something new and I could see the potential for a lot of different things in the future once I was familiar with those tools. But the thing I realized pretty early on was that also I was not very good at it. I never had any professional training. I haven't spent too much time using those tools, and I don't imagine I'm going to be a outstanding top 5% video editor in the world. So what I instead wanted to do was focusing on content creation, focusing on the meat of the content to provide value through the insights, the knowledge that I could share with you, and not necessarily on the video editing side of things. And so what I did was I hired a video editor to process all of the videos that I have. I have a bunch of videos that are sitting in the backlog right now that I just haven't had the opportunity to edit, to give them the love that they deserve, and they're just sitting in my hard drives. So that was one thing that was very conscious about. I wanted to delegate some of the work in content creation to another person who can help me increase the quality of the work. So that's the commitment that I made, and I finally landed on someone that I'm very excited about, and she's going to be helping me out with all the video editing, creating the thumbnails, creating some of the scripts, the description. So mostly she'll be my social media manager to help me process all of the things that I need to do, but I don't really enjoy doing, so that I can focus more on the content creation side, where I can provide insights and knowledge that will be most valuable to people like you. So that was one thing, and I took up a lot of time to make sure that I could find the right person. I went on a lot of different websites like Freelance, Elance, I think there was one of them, and Upwork, right? So that anyone who's ever done any of that type of work would realize you have a lot of really good talent all over the world, but they also have really high ratings. To find a really good one, usually you would start by thinking you want to find the people who have the most ratings, the highest reviews, because other people have vetted them. But consequently, what that also means is that the price for them are much higher. That's what I realized. And for me, I have a very limited budget. I don't have a YouTube channel that's making any money for me right now. This is purely as a hobby. I want to continue creating, but I also don't want to burn a hole in my wallet. So that's what I did, right? I didn't want to hire the top ranking ones because the cost for hiring them would be very high. But also, if you want to give an opportunity for people who don't have ratings, who don't have reviews, you're taking a much bigger risk. They might be good, they might be cheaper, but you don't know their work ethics. You don't know if they're able to turn around the work in a consistent time manner. You don't know if the quality is going to be good. So you're taking a much bigger gamble from that perspective. I've tried talking to people who are not necessarily rated on the platform just yet, but it's been very flaky. Some of them might respond and then drop off, or some of them might change their price even after you have agreed to a certain price. I'll try to include some of that screenshots and conversations that I have in here, so you can take a look there. But it was definitely an experience for anyone who's never done this before. Definitely do try it out and see, right, what is the trade-off that you're okay with, the price to the quality. So that was that. I spent a lot of time on it. I had a lot of interviews with people, talking to them on Zoom, on Google Meets, just to get a sense of who they are, what their work ethic is like, what the values that they have. And ideally, I wanted to find someone who wants to grow with me. So as the channel gets more subscribers, gets more different types of content, they can learn to be either, if they want to be a software engineer, right, they can transition from being a video editor into being a software engineer in the future. So I wanted to make sure that there's a good alignment in terms of principles, in terms of values of the people that are working with me. Where majority of the time spent in finding my video editor, and the rest of the time I've been, if you follow me on my LinkedIn, you probably see that again, there was a reorg or reorganization, that's what they call it here, that happened at work. And as a result of that, I've had to travel to Menlo Park for a week just to talk to the new people that are transitioning to the team. And it was a really good learning experience for myself and in general to understand what happens behind the scenes, that people are going to transition smoothly so that they can find a home in this new team, because it's a very scary experience for both parties involved, the people that are transferring into the team and people that are transferring out of the team. You want to make sure during this transition that, number one, the people are being taken care of first, because it doesn't matter what the work is, the project is, the scope of the work is. If people are happy, I think everything else after that can be handled very smoothly. But if people are not happy, that's where all the troubles are going to happen, because if they feel unsatisfied, they feel that they're not taken care of, the first thing that comes to mind is they're going to jump ship, either to a different team, to their previous manager whom they've had a very good working relationship with. And by definition, the people at the work that I'm at, they're very high talent, super smart people who have multiple opportunities, right, to work at different places. Because all of these people that are transferring, they have a lot of context, a lot of experience, a lot of skills that make them very, very desirable anywhere they go. So that was like the most important part, which is making sure that people are going to be successful, making sure that people feel that they are taken care of. So I spent a lot of time just chatting to people, making sure that they can grow with their scope in the new team and that they can see their place in this new world. So that was the thing that required a lot of time. We met them, talked to them, and really understood where they're coming from. And number two is making sure that there are no gaps in the transition. What that means is maybe there are some projects that have been promised that needed to be delivered by a certain time frame. Now with the transition, is it going to follow the people? Is it going to follow the scope? Is it going to follow the team? And that's something that always needs to be clarified, because usually what I've seen is problems happen when there are gaps and cracks in between the processes where things might get slipped through, right? A good example of that are projects, right? Your project, well, for project A, and now because you're transitioning to a new team, no one really picked up that work, right? So as a result, people might forget, right? And that is going to be very problematic, both for the engineer and also for the new manager in that team. So we want to make sure that during this whole transition, we cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure there are no cracks in the process, and make sure the transition happens very smoothly with a very clear timeline and very clear expectations. So that's number two, right? Making sure that the process is correct. And number three, right? People, process. And then the third part, I think the main learning for me is that making sure that the team has the right structure moving forward. Some managers, because they want to grow their scope, so they don't mind taking in more and more people, because I think the expectation is with more people, that means your scope is bigger, that means your title is going to get a bigger bump because now you're responsible for many different areas. But the gotcha for this is that if you don't have a clear charter for your team, for your organization, it's very difficult for people to see what is the unifying theme for all these different things, right? Ideally, you have a very clear story for why your team needs to exist. And that has to be a singular purpose, a singular vision that connects the whole team together to the company's top priorities, to the company's top line. They need to know why they need to exist. They need to know why it's important for them to exist. And if you start taking on more and more team work, more scope from other teams that don't necessarily make sense to the vision of the team, that's where problems occur, because they start seeing themselves as us versus them, right? They start seeing themselves as mercenaries who are just doing the work as they're needed, and they don't really see a connecting vision of why this whole thing's, how everything, all the pieces tie together. And that's a very critical important part that the manager plays in this whole conversation. The manager is the person who helps the team see the vision and understand the value that the team provides in relation to the company's top mission, top vision, right? The manager as a leader, you have to help them understand and see why it's important. If the team doesn't see the value, or if they don't understand what the charter is or what value they provide to the company, it is a miss on the leader's part. It is a miss on the manager's part, because that is essentially, right, that's the role of a manager, at least in my opinion, right? When I talked to my mentor, Suresh, yesterday, we had a really good conversation around what is leadership, what does it mean to be a manager, what are the core responsibilities or core things to know if you have a good manager. And this was one of the key things that we talked about, which is a manager as a leader, as a person who is in charge of an entire team. Your role is to provide vision, provide connection for the team so that they can understand why the work they do matters. And I thought that was a really, really good point to sum up this conversation. And that's essentially where I've been spending a lot of my time in the past several weeks, focusing on the transition for this new scope, for this new team that's coming over. By the way, we have quite a lot of people that are joining, and it's a very good, interesting learning process for myself. And I've been spending a lot of my time finding editors. So now that kind of those two things have concluded, I'm very, very happy that I can finally get back into the regular cadence of creating content again, to share some of my thoughts very transparently with you on the things that I've been thinking about and struggles, as well as takeaways, right, in my life. Hopefully this has been useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.